Welcome to the fourth episode of the AddVANCEO podcast. Today, we are walking straight into a minefield.
A minefield? That feels a little dramatic.
Is it, though? We're talking about feedback culture. And let's be honest, for most people, feedback is not a warm, fuzzy word.
No, not at all.
It's that, that corporate code for the awkward stomach-churning meeting where your boss lists everything you've done wrong for the last 6 months.
While you sit there just nodding and planning your escape.
Exactly. And that's precisely why we need to do this deep dive. Because if you look at the research we've got in front of us, it turns out the way we think about feedback is, well, it's almost scientifically designed to fail.
It is. That's a bold way to put it, but the data really backs it up. We see feedback as a stick. It's a corrective tool.
A once-a-year ritual.
Right. But true feedback culture isn't about correction at all. It's about alignment. It's actually the main engine for learning in any organization.
But there's a huge disconnect there, isn't there? I mean, if I ask 10 leaders, 9 of them will say, oh, I give great feedback. My door is always open.
Of course.
But then you ask their teams.
And you hear crickets. Total silence. Or even worse, they say they only hear from their manager when something is already on fire.
Right. Management by exception. And I think that's our mission for today, to really bridge that gap and figure out what a true feedback culture looks like, why it's so critical for leadership and, for getting results.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What it really means. And maybe the best way to define it is by what it isn't.
Okay.
It's not criticism, it's not an evaluation, and it is absolutely not about control.
So what's left?
Information. A healthy feedback culture is just an environment where information about impact, about performance, circulates clearly and constructively.
So it's about the flow of data.
Exactly. The core principle here, and this runs through everything we do at AddVANCEO, is simple. Feedback is information, not judgment.
I like that in theory. Information, not judgment. But if you tell me I completely messed up a presentation, that feels like a judgment. I don't hear neutral data. I hear you're bad at your job.
And you're supposed to feel that way. That's biology. Your brain is actually hardwired to react like that. There's some fascinating neuroscience on this.
Fight or flight thing.
That's the one. In the modern office, a critical comment from your boss can trigger the exact same neural pathways as, say, seeing a predator in the wild.
You're kidding.
Not at all. The research shows that social rejection or negative evaluation, it lights up the same parts of the brain as physical pain.
So when my stomach drops during a tough review, that's not me being overly sensitive. That's a real biological pain response.
It's a literal state of distress.
Yep.
Your amygdala gets hijacked. And here's the problem for any leader. When the amygdala takes over, it pulls energy and resources away from your prefrontal cortex.
Which is the smart part of the brain, the part that learns.
Exactly, the part that thinks rationally and solves problems. So we have this paradox. I need to give you feedback so you can learn, but the moment I do it badly, your brain physically shuts down its learning center to protect you from the threat.
Wow, that explains so much. It explains why people get so defensive, even when you're genuinely trying to help them.
Precisely. So the first job of a leader is to transform feedback from a threat into a resource. You have to find a way to deliver the information so it can actually land and be used.
So this clearly isn't something that just happens.
Yeah.
You don't just magically end up with a good feedback culture.
No, absolutely not. It has to be designed. It has to be led. And that means focusing on 3 key dimensions. First up is clarity.
Meaning, be specific.
Be specific and observable. We'll get into this more later, but feedback like you have a bad attitude is useless. It's just a judgment.
Okay, so clarity first. What's second?
Continuity. It has to be ongoing. A constant pulse, not a once-a-year heart attack during the performance review.
Right, move away from that whole annual ritual. And the third?
Reciprocity. It has to flow in all directions, not just top-down. Upwards, sideways, peer-to-peer. In a really healthy culture, anyone can give feedback to anyone else.
I want to circle back to leadership on this. Because if it's this hard and this biologically painful, why should a leader even bother? It seems so much easier to just let things slide.
The return on investment is speed and alignment. Think about a plane flying across the ocean. It's technically off course something like 90% of the time.
That is a very comforting thought for my next flight.
But it lands safely because of thousands of tiny, constant corrections. That's what a feedback culture does. It allows for early, small adjustments.
So a small course correction in week 1.
It's just a gentle nudge. But if you wait 6 months to have that conversation, now it's a crisis. It's a performance improvement plan. The cost of silence is escalation.
And frustration, I imagine. One of the sources talked about the silent accumulation of frustration.
Yes, that's a huge cost. When people don't get feedback, that annoyance or confusion, it doesn't just disappear, it compounds. And eventually, motivation just goes bankrupt.
This sounds very connected to psychological safety.
It is, but there's a really interesting layer to it called effective trust.
Effective trust. What's that?
Well, you have cognitive trust, which is I trust you're competent, but effective trust is I trust you care about my well-being. I trust you're on my side.
And why is that distinction so important?
Because the research shows that even if I think you're brilliant, I will not ask you for feedback if I don't have that effective trust. I'm not going to make myself vulnerable if I think you're just looking to find fault.
That makes perfect sense. And without that safety, you get a stalemate.
Exactly. Managers are afraid to give feedback because of the drama, and employees are afraid to ask for it. And that's where high performance goes to die. It's why this is so central to the AddVANCEO model. It fuels all three pillars: awareness, engagement, and improvement.
Okay, so we know why it's important. But let's get into the dysfunctions. Why do we get this so wrong so often?
Oh, there's so many ways. The most obvious one is probably timing.
The, hey, remember that meeting 3 months ago? Approach.
And what happens when you do that?
People's eyes glaze over. They say, I don't remember it that way. Or worse, why are you bringing this up now?
Right. Because you can't change the past. Feedback on something that happened ages ago just feels like you're holding a grudge. It has zero learning value.
Another big one has to be the no news is good news philosophy.
That's probably the most common form of neglectful leadership. We think we're being easygoing, but really we're just creating anxiety. People are left guessing, am I doing okay? Am I about to get fired? They have no idea.
Now, here's the part of the research that really floored me. The idea that feedback can actually make things worse.
The tipping point, yes. A major meta-analysis found that in a full 1/3 of cases, feedback interventions actually reduced performance.
1/3. So in a third of these cases, giving someone feedback made them worse at their job.
Yes, because the feedback attacked their ego instead of focusing on the task. If I tell you you're not a very strategic thinker, your sense of self takes a hit and you just shut down.
But if you say,
in that plan, we missed a key risk factor. Let's talk about how to spot those earlier next time. Now we're talking about the task, not your identity.
that's a critical distinction. And it leads right into the problem with anonymous feedback, doesn't it? The secret squirrel approach.
Yes, the classic 360 review problem. We think anonymity creates safety, but it often just breeds paranoia.
Because I can't ask for context. If someone says I'm arrogant, I need to know when, where. Without that, the feedback is useless, and I just start suspecting everyone on my team.
It erodes trust instead of building it.
Okay, we've outlined the problem pretty thoroughly. Let's get into the solutions. The practical shifts leaders can start using tomorrow.
Right, let's make this actionable. Shift number 1 is probably the most important.
And that is?
Separate facts from your interpretations.
Okay, so the laziness versus lateness example. Break that down for us.
Laziness is a story you tell yourself. It's a judgment. You can't see it or measure it. But lateness,
That's a fact.
it's a fact. You arrived at the daily stand-up 10 minutes late on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. That is an observable, indisputable fact. You start there. You anchor the conversation in reality, not in your opinion.
So you describe what a camera would have seen.
Precisely. Which leads directly to shift 2. Link the behavior to its impact.
Don't just say what they did. Explain the consequences.
Yes. Instead of saying, you talk too much in meetings, you say, when you spoke for 10 minutes straight, we ran out of time and didn't get to hear from the engineering team.
Ah, so it's not about your personality. It's about the outcome for the team or the business. It makes it a shared problem to solve.
It completely depersonalizes it. Now, what about positive feedback?
Right. It's not just a spoonful of sugar.
No, the feedback sandwich is a terrible idea. Everyone just waits for the criticism in the middle. Shift 3 is to give reinforcing feedback that is just as specific and impactful as the corrective kind.
So not just good job, but the way you framed the data in that slide deck was incredibly clear. It helped the client make a decision on the spot.
Exactly. You're showing them what good looks like so they can do it again.
And Shift 4 seems to be about leaders modeling the behavior.
You have to. Invite feedback actively. A leader who sits down and genuinely asks, what's one thing I could do to run these meetings better? And then listens without getting defensive. That changes the entire dynamic of a team.
It makes it safe for everyone else.
It makes it normal. It shows feedback is a tool for everyone's growth, not a weapon for management.
I really loved the feed-forward concept from the research. It feels like a total cheat code for bypassing that defensive brain reaction.
It is. It's a brilliant hack. Instead of dissecting the past, which is all about blame, you focus on the future.
So you ask,
Hey, for the next presentation, can I offer a suggestion that might help?
and why does it work so much better?
Because the past is closed. You can't change it, so you defend it. The future is open. It's full of possibility. It activates the creative parts of your brain, not the stress response parts. You're co-creating a future success instead of arguing about a past failure.
And lastly, there's just a basic protocol, right? A simple first step.
Always ask permission. Do you have a minute? Is now a good time to share an observation?
It sounds so simple, but it's really about ensuring the other person is actually ready to listen.
It's about consent. You can't force learning on someone. You have to make sure their brain is online and ready to receive the information.
So this all brings us back to the big picture. For AddVANCEO, this isn't just another management technique.
It's a cornerstone. It is the core of sustainable development. Without a constant flow of feedback, you are flying blind. You're just guessing. A strong feedback culture is what allows a system, a team, an entire company to self-correct and evolve.
It's evolution, not correction.
Exactly. It's not about fixing people. It's about helping the entire system evolve with more clarity and more responsibility.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, what's the key takeaway for a leader listening right now?
I think it's recognizing that a feedback culture isn't built with posters or an annual training. It's built through thousands of tiny daily leadership choices.
The choice to speak clearly instead of hinting.
The choice to listen openly instead of defending. The choice to see feedback as fuel for progress rather than a risk to your relationships.
We're going to keep exploring these practices in our next episodes, especially how they build trust and alignment. But before we sign off, you have one last provocative thought for us.
I do. It's this idea of feedback utility. We get so obsessed with our delivery. Am I saying it right? Is my tone okay? But the research shows the real value, the utility of the feedback, isn't in the giving, it's in the receiver's ability to use it.
So we're focused on the wrong side of the equation.
A lot of the time, yes. So the question to leave you with is this. Are you just working on polishing your delivery? Or are you actively building your team's capacity to receive feedback? Are you making them more resilient, more open, and better able to turn that information into action?
That is a powerful question. Are we building capacity or just writing better scripts?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the AddVANCEO podcast. Speak to you soon.